From the virtual studios of the Department of Communication in Phillipsburg, Community Development, Family and Humanitarian Affairs welcomes you to this Father's Day panel discussion on fatherhood in the 21st century. Here's your host and moderator, Malcolm Jacques.
Welcome to Fatherhood in the 21st Century, a panel discussion brought to you by Community Development, Family, Humanitarian Affairs in the Ministry of Public Health, Social Development, and Labor. The parenting seed that we sow today will be reaped by the generation to come. It is only when we fathom the significance of our current action or lack thereof on our grandchildren and their children will we reap and grasp the importance of our role as fathers. And therefore, we need to do all it takes to get it right. Ladies and gentlemen, I have a team of panelists that will be delving into the topics: a strong role model, active fatherhood, gratitude from the children perspective, and technology. I would like to now introduce our first panelist, Marvio A. Cooks. He is a father of two. He graduated from the Florida A&M University with a Bachelor in Computer Science. He is currently an ICT coordinator with the Division of Public Education within the Ministry of Education, Culture, Youth, and Sports. He started Alsphere with the goal of helping individuals and businesses find products and services they need. The company prioritized sourcing locally in an effort to bring more activity to locally owned business and freelancers. In the last few years, he has worked with a number of companies, namely the St. Martin Hospitality and Foundation, National Institute of Professional Advancement, NIPA, the Government of St. Martin, the Methodist Church Training and Literature Committee, among others. Welcome, Marvio. Also on the panel, we have Darren Hodge, affectionately known as King Verse. He's a father, an artist, songwriter, public figure. He is the four-time Power Soca King of St. Martin. He has graced many stages across the world. Coupled with his passion for music, King Verse is also known for working in radio, and he has performed in several plays. He also enjoys mountain biking, snorkeling, playing basketball. He attests that his greatest role to date is being a father of his 8-year-old son, Gianni. Welcome, King Verse. We also have Elroy Hughes. He's a father of two lovely daughters. He attended the Milton Peters College, the National Caribbean Business School, and is an employee of Telem. He has worked in the industry for 32 years. Elroy has played an active role in his community, and he considers himself a community activist. He has been a long-standing member of the St. Martin Red Cross, JCI. He's a Toastmaster. He also part of the PTA, a member of the PTA on both the MAC campus at the St. John's Estate, as well as St. Martin Academy. He's a life coach. Some of his hobbies include swimming, running, hiking. Mr. Hughes always believed that, as a father, presence is critical in the development of the child. Welcome, Hughes. Last but definitely not the least, we have Pastor Nolan Nanton. He's a happy husband for the last 17 years. He's married to Alexia Nanton and a proud parent of 4 children. Pastor Nanton received his formal education at the Union Island Secondary School of St. Vincent. The St. Vincent Teachers College, Dallas Global Proclamation Academy. He's currently a student at the Leverage University and Leadership Institute and Institute for Integrative Nutrition. He taught at the Stephanie Brown Primary School, Mary Hawkinson Primary School, the Lunch Village Primary School, and that is in a total of 7 years as a teacher. He served at the Christ is the Answer Academy Church as a musician, worship minister, youth leader. He have graced many stages, worked on radio and television. He's currently served as the pastor of the New Testament Baptist Church right here in Felixville. Pastor Nathan, welcome, welcome. And I would like to wish each and every one of you a happy Father's Day. Now we'll get straight into it. And the first topic, and I guess we'll start with Pastor Nathan. A strong role model is very important. Children learn ethical value and behaviors by watching their parents. We need to show empathy, sympathy, so they can emulate us. How mindful are you on this? And how are you harnessing this, Pastor Nathan?
Bless you nicely, Malcolm, and thank you for having me. Always a pleasure to come and to share with our community. As per the question, it is quite obvious because when we talk to our children, most of the time they don't hear us just by words, they follow our actions. This has been something that I'm very, very conscious of. In my own family, there are 2 areas that I point out particularly, and I let my children know that those are my focus area. That's their academic ability and their spiritual life. And my consciousness of that, even as I sought to develop myself, whenever I achieve or attain certain academic endeavors, I will share that with my children because I want to set the pattern that I'm not just telling them something, but I'm showing them that I too can do that. So in all of my studies, I will share my grades. When I have exam, I will let them know and so forth. And as for our spiritual life, that's something I live before them daily. They will hear me pray, they will see me pray, they will hear me, they will see me go to church. In fact, they will follow me to church because wherever I go in that context, they are there with me. So it is something I'm very conscious of, that children follow more an example rather than just telling them to do something. It's always better when you can set that example. They will follow the pattern. And as a result, my own children, what they will do, they will come and they will bring their grades to me just the same way. I mean, I will see them anyhow, but we have a standard at our home because, as you rightly said, I'm in Leverage University and also the Institute of Integrative Nutrition. So we have a standard in my home that I would say to my children, listen, you have no other job to do. Just bring daddy good grades, 80% and above. So they set that standard. That doesn't mean that they will always attain that, or if they make a mistake that I will dunk them, but at least we have that standard. And I need to make sure that in my studies, I maintain that. So I have to be open with them so that they can see that, setting goals and so forth is not a bad thing and going after it. So I believe that you be in that pace, whatever you want to see in your children, you must first become it. Not just academically and spiritually, but whatever part of life, you must first become that, because the child can look at you and say, well, you ain't doing it.
Exactly.
You're asking me to do something and you ain't doing it. So we have to set that model, before them, and then they are going to feel comfortable to follow. We have to be mindful also that it's children, and sometimes they may not always meet your standard, but if the example is there, they will go after it. And more than likely, they're going to follow the pattern.
Thank you, thank you. Totally agree. Marvio, can you give us some example of just being that role model to your child?
Yes. Good afternoon, everyone, again. There was a part about being able to empathize with your child. And that's where I am able to connect better with my children, is being able to empathize with them, and knowing when to empathize and when to sympathize with them. I agree wholeheartedly with what Pastor Nolan was saying, where you have to be that example. You have to be that example. And I would like to, tell other fathers that are out there, it's okay if you're not that example right now, but you have to come to terms with it, and you have to be able to say, okay, I'm going to start today. And just like everything else, you have to, do better today than you did yesterday and continue. So one way that I use empathy, especially with my daughter, is especially she gets very frustrated if she's doing something for the first time and doesn't get it right. She's one of those. She if she sees you give her an example of something, for example, writing her numbers. When I write her numbers for her, she wants to be able to replicate that immediately. She wants to be able to do it just the way I did it, and so on. And she gets frustrated sometimes and wants to give up. So what I would do is I would use empathy. I would empathize with her. I let her know, hey, I understand how you feel. I was once young. And, and then I would explain to her and use that empathy, not to just, make her feel better, but to also enact a call to action to say, hey, I get it. You're frustrated now, but are you going to use the frustration to stop, or are you going to use the frustration to get energized and try again and see where you're making mistakes? And I would explain to her too that her wrist isn't the same as daddy's, and I wouldn't go too in depth on, cartilage and so on about the wrist, but I let her know that she's young. I like to tell her she's young in this world. You just arrived on the planet, and there's some things you got to get used to. And from there, she would
work in progress.
Yes, it's a work in progress, and she would, look at me, ask some more questions, but she would get back to it. And that's what I like to, tell fathers. You can use. It's okay, as Pastor said. They're young. Sometimes they don't even understand what you're asking of them. And it's good to use questions to make sure that they understand what you're asking of them and why. My daughter likes to ask that a lot. I call her the CEO because she tells me what to do a lot, but she likes to ask why, what happens if I don't? And at first it might seem a little rude, but when you realize that they haven't been on this planet as long as we have, there's things they need to understand, and they ask questions differently, and we have to get used to that.
All right. Thank you for that contribution. Toastmaster Hughes, can you give us your take from an external point of view, like sympathizing and empathizing with people? How do you instill that value in your daughters?
Yes. Thank you, Malcolm. And happy Father's Day to each and every one of my panelists. When it comes to empathizing with your children, it is important that you always remember that what they are going through at the moment, it is not something that they probably experienced before. So you have to take time to understand what they're going through in order for you to really counsel them. Whether it's counsel, sit with them in order for them to really understand that, there's a lot of other ways you can overcome or deal with the situation that you're dealing with at the moment. And that's one of the ways I truly sit with my daughters when they were young and try as much as possible. But I also believe that you being an example of whatever situation you're faced with, you're able to explain them because you went through it. And too often we forget as parents that we too was once their ages. So what happened? We expect the best out of them, forgetting that they are children, and part of their growth is the different experiences that they're experiencing at the moment.
Definitely. Thank you for that. Verse, I want you to give a different twist to it, because we've been hearing a lot about bullying, especially in the school environment, and that definitely show that there's a lack of empathy. How do you really instill into your son the need for having, sympathy and empathy for others?
Well, basically for me, I do my best to first of all, if I'm talking to my son, I always try to get at his level, so it all depends on what the communication is at that point in time. If I'm having to be the authority at that given moment, then of course I have to stand up tall and talk down to him so he understands that I'm in control, I'm in command. When I want him to understand and to be at his level, I always come down to his level to have that eye-to-eye contact, make him feel like, hey, this is not just my superior, he's also my equal. He's trying to, instill something in me. And I guide him through life. I let me know what's going on. And when he asks a question, like, the fellow panelists, said, the kids will ask questions, and you do your best to give them as much detail and information that they can manage at that age to process the information properly so they can understand it, break it down real simple to them. And, I always instill in him, like there was a time, I think it was last year, St. Martin's Day, I saw a homeless person, the gentleman was looking through the garbage. So without telling him anything, I drove to McDonald's, picked up a little meal, and I brought it back to him. And then I explained to my son why I did it. Explained to him that, hey, everyone goes through a different situation. It doesn't matter, the current state, we don't know that person's trauma as to why they did. So you always have to have compassion, sympathy, and all those different emotions. And, for me, in hopes of showing him that when you get older as well, you have to do your due diligence in life as to give forward. You understand? It's not always about receiving and so forth. And even, for example, when it comes to bullying, I tell him, be very aware in school as to what's going on. Make sure that you are not a bully, and make sure that the minute somebody tries to bully you, you stand up to them, not necessarily to go and fight, but let the right authorities know, let the teacher know what's going on, and you process that, you carry that information forward. So to put a stop to it immediately. And what we need to do as fathers is always be present and make sure that we instill that in our kids. If you have a son that's a little aggressive, you have to tell him, hey, I like your aggressiveness, but make sure to channel that in the right areas.
Thank you. And that leads me to my next question, speaking of being active, because there's no way we could demonstrate that to our children without really being active in their life. And that leads us to the next topic, how active we are as fathers in the life of our children, where we could teach them these values. So there's much room for improvement as it pertains to how active fathers are in their children's life, and especially working fathers as well. So, Pastor Nanton, I will ask you, what are some of the hurdles and hindrances that are in the way of being active in our children's life? So let me know some and give me some solution from your perspective.
Thank you again, Malcolm. And I have to wish all the fathers looking at us right now happy Father's Day as well. I think we get so passionate about the discussion, we forget to
That's right.
give our fathers the thumbs up, and big them up because it is Father's Day. So we really want to wish them a very happy Father's Day and trust that they enjoy it to the max. As for the question, when you're looking at hindrances, there are several areas I would just like to throw out. The whole aspect of our early childhood experiences. What we experience as children can play, a big role in how we interact with our children. Many persons today grow up in fatherless homes. Sad to say, that doesn't mean it has to be our present reality. It can change, and those experiences, they form our life, and they also determine how we behave when we ourselves become fathers, considering the fact that most persons become parents by accident. Most persons, they just go to sugar and something come, and then you become a parent and you're trying to figure this thing out, but you've never had that example before you. So what you find sometimes happening is persons who have never had that example, they are afraid, or that because they don't know how to venture out into something that they themselves have never learned. And I would pause to say to our fathers who are listening to us, it's never too late to become an example. It's never too late to become an example. So in respect to our childhood experiences, sometimes we have to face it. We have to say to ourselves, you know what? I've never had this, or I've never had that, or this affect me this way. Because it might not be a case of an absent father. It might be a bad experience. It affects me this way, but I can bring about a change in my family, in my generation, in my time. So we have to face our early childhood experiences because they come as scar, and then you have the whole aspect about work. Many fathers today are challenged because they are working. So they want to be a part, but because they have to fight to provide in a lot of ways, they find themselves struggling to become a part of. I am privileged because of my profession that I have time to spend with my children, and I use my car. You see, you have to know the area that you have time. I use my car a lot. So when I'm taking my children to school, we interact a lot. That's where my altar is. That's where we spend time in prayer. That's where we question. That's where we talk and so forth. When I'm picking them up, they will share with me their experience in school, what they learned today. If it's exam, they will share. That time in the car is very critical for me. And then you have the dinner table where we'll talk around the dinner table, not every living day because sometimes it's not possible. But you see, like a Sunday, for example, it's very pertinent. So you will utilize, you have to know the time gap that you have in between. For the working fathers who don't have that privilege to go out to the event, of their children and so forth, and to be there as they would want to be because of the kind of job that they have in, we have to improvise. We'll come down to talk about the importance of technology and so forth, but we have to improvise and find ways to still be a part of, to view and to see and to be a part of our children's lives. So work, as good as work is, let me share something with you, Malcolm. It's not negative things that necessarily affect us. Sometimes it's the good things. And as one author says, out of priority. If we don't prioritize our work, the same thing that provides become a hindrance. All right. So work can be one, and we have to learn to balance work and so forth. And then you have the whole aspect of social life. I'll just show three, and I'll leave my other brothers to talk in other areas. The whole aspect of social life. What we say, when we say yes to something, we've got to remember we are saying no to another. You see? And so we have to calculate what the no for the yes is. So if I'm going to align with my friends, but I'm saying no to my children, I have to weigh which one is more important. You see, because you only have your children for so long, and the pace at which the day is being closed, you really have to take the time to invest in them. That gap 0 to 8 gap is very, very important. Everything we learn from 0 to 8, we are either going to fight against it, or it's going to determine how we behave.
Thank you for that. Yes, always a yin and yang. So Toastmaster use, how do you balance? I see in your intro that you've been in the industry for 32 years. How do you balance work and fatherhood?
One of the things, and just to add a little bit to what Pastor Nolan mentioned, every moment that you have to spend with your child, it must be 100%. And when I say 100%, I mean the moment you have with them, it has to be 100% attentive, be active with them, not being with them, but your body is there, but your mind is somewhere else. So that is the 100% I'm talking about, and 100% with whatever it is you do. But being an active person, whether it's my job or whatever other activities I'm part of, I always see to it that whatever I'm doing, my children have a clear idea as to why I'm doing it, why I'm absent, and the importance of what I'm doing. And that's one of the things that is very important for us as fathers or as a parent to do. We involve our children in some of the activities that we're doing. I can remember my eldest daughter. She was only a couple months old and attending one of GC's activities, Easter egg hunt. She's just in a little basket stroller, and I would walk with her to the event or walk with her to certain meetings. And she kind of grew into it and became part of that role, experiencing what I'm experiencing. But working, I give 100% to my job. I give 100% to my children.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
no less.
Thank you. Thank you for that. King Verse, I know you are called on many occasions to take part in many activities. How do you balance that quickly so then we could give Mavia opportunity to share on the topic?
Well, basically, the two, Pastor Nanton and Mr. Elroy, they hit it on the head. You have to take those small opportunities. Like I pick up my son from school, I take him to soccer. I'm very involved. If he needs to go bike riding, I'm there. And unfortunately, me and his mom, we are separated. We have moved on in our personal life, but I'm very present. Every day I'm there. Every day, almost every day he sees me, and I'm always telling him I'm one phone call away. If I do content creation, I do videos. So if he can come, if it's an area where he can be, I bring him along so he can see what it is that I do. When he can't make it, I explain to him why he can't come. But I do my best to be there, and there's no excuse for fathers not to show up in his life.
Thank you for that. Mavio.
Yes, I mean, all the other fathers, also happy Father's Day, everyone. They hit the nail on the head. You have to be, you have to be innovative, improvise, take every single minute that you can when you can. The car rides is definitely something I do with my daughter. I ask her questions. No music in the car sometimes. We just sit down and want to hear your voice. Let's talk. I try to teach my daughter Spanish because we speak Spanish. And she tries to teach me Dutch because she goes to a Dutch-speaking school. So I ask her questions to kind of engage and so on. My son, he's on his phone, so I text him. I like to, say, hey, what are you doing? How are you feeling? What are you thinking today? How was school? So as fathers, it's not all the time that we have the time to do so. But like the other father said, explain when you can't be there, the importance of it. And also, make sure that your schedule fits your children and not that your children fit your schedule. I like to make sure that I ask I set days and I do those things on those days. But guess what? If my child has something to do first, I do my best to be there. And that's what you have to do. Thank you.
Thank you for that. There's never a lack of opportunity to be engaged in our children's life. So it is very, very important, whether it's just driving to school or at the dinner table, but every opportunity to mold them is an opportunity that we should exploit. Thank you, generals. Thank you for that presentation. And we will be right back with the other topic.
You're watching a Fatherhood in the 21st Century panel discussion.
Hey!
Hey, what's up?
Girl, I heard you moved.
Yeah, I have, but I haven't reached the civil registry to change my address yet.
Did you know according to the law, you have 5 working days to change your address after moving?
The changing of address can be done in 2 ways. 1, making an appointment where you appear in person at the civil registry. 2, sending an email to burkhazakan@stmartingov.org. What is required to change your address? A valid identification such as a passport, ID card, or driver's license. The deed of property if you're the owner, a lease agreement if you're renting, a GB utility bill, or the permission form from the landlord or property owner, including their identification. Who can change an address? A person who is 18 years or older. For minors, both parents have to give consent. Failure to register your change of address can result in a fine. For more information, please contact the Civil Registry Department at 721-542-0652 or email us at burkhazakan@stmartingov.org. We are located at the Government Administration Building, Swaliga Road, number 1, Phillipsburg, St. Martin.
You're watching a Fatherhood in the 21st Century panel discussion.
Welcome back to Fatherhood in the 21st Century. Now, we just discussed being an active father, and now we'll get into the part of gratitude. Gratitude is said to be the heart's memory. It is said that Generation Z, that is those born around 1997, feels more entitled than any previous generation. Toastmaster Hughes, can you tell me why you think so, or if you subscribe to that thought?
Thank you, Malcolm. Generation Z feel that they're more entitled. I don't think it's about me feeling more entitled. I think it is the imagery that we give them. For some of us as parents, we try as much as possible to give our children everything that we didn't had in our life before. So what happened? We will give them every single thing, and from the moment we can't do that and not explain them the reason why we are not able to give it to them, we see the kind of reaction. And I think it's important for us that we need to teach our children as fathers the importance of gratitude, because everything that you get or you give it with gratitude. There's a whole lot of persons in our community or around the world who are able to experience or get the things that we're getting. And we need to be able to teach our children that if they get 6 things instead of 10 things, they'll show gratitude for it. If they didn't get a Reebok, but they get something less expensive than the Reebok, they have to really show how important and how gratitude, how grateful they are for getting shoes. Because you can go a lot of places right here in St. Martin, you'll see that there are persons who are not able to buy a Reebok and buy a Nike, those expensive items. But sometimes our role as parents is to see to it that our children understand the importance of gratitude, and not only on the receiving end, but also on the giving end.
Thank you for that. So, let's go to verse on the subject of feeling entitled. What is your take on this subject? And if so, if you feel that the Generation Z are that way, how do you think we could mitigate against that?
Well, personally, if Generation Z, a person from Generation Z feels entitled, I would have to question what role did the parent play in making that child feel entitled? Because we don't born just magically, hey, I'm entitled to this and to that. I wouldn't know the value of or the price of a Nike shoe, for example, unless my mother or my father tells me, hey, this costs $150. And then when they bring a shoe of a lesser value, this only costs $50. Then I make the math and I'm like, oh, but that one is more. And, so for me, it's like, what role does the parent play? There has to be some role. And then for us to change that, it's simple. Be grateful for what you have. Like what Elroy said, take them maybe to places where you see folks and kids with far less who are happy with having less, much more happier. You understand? And show them or take away something. Like, for example, this past Christmas, my son got a PlayStation, but I make him work for it. For his birthday past March, he earned a bike. I don't make him work for it. No, what he doesn't understand is that, no, you have more things of value that I can take away when you misbehave. So guess what? He's on punishment. No, he can't go on the PlayStation. He can't go on the tablet. He can't ride no bike. So now he's learning to appreciate the things that he does have, because, I'm instilling that in him. Yes, I will give you it. It's like a reward system almost. You have to do good in school. Your behavior has to match. And there's no just because I will have it. That for me doesn't fly, So I think there's a certain role that a parent plays, a significant role that a parent plays in that, to have that Generation Z feeling that kind of way.
Thank you for that. Pastor, it is said that working parents invest less time into their children. And I just piggybacking on what verse just said. And as such, as they spend less time with their children, they tend to substitute that with gifts and material things. And there's a school of thought that it is that causing that entitlement development in the generation. What is your take on that?
Well, Malcolm, what has happened is that, we have to be careful of the values that we are teaching children. If you are substituting your presence with gift, I think we are playing we're treading down a dangerous road, because there is nothing as valuable to an individual as the presence of their most trusted figure, their parents. You see, if you do that when the child is young, later on, there's a good chance you're going to lose that child. You're going to feel later on that you're not connected, and then we're going to have to complain, but I give you all that you want, but you forget to give the most important thing, which is yourself. So sacrificing to give the child everything may be good on the parent part, but don't forget what is most important is you. So the best gift to give is you. We have seen children who do not have as much, but boy, they have the parents. And the way they grow up, the emotional development that they attain from that, even with the lack, they appreciate life more. In fact, it helped them to attain the things that they did not get.
Thank you for that. Mavio, can you tell me how you instill into your child the appreciation itself? Give us your take on that. We're sharing best practices here.
Well, what I like to do is use stories. I grew up with my parents and my grandmother telling me stories of things and how they grew up and what they had. And as a result, I grew up loving history. And I do the same, with my children, and I tell them, especially when it comes to academics or something that they want. I would tell them a story of, when I wanted something and how I would crave it when I didn't have it, but what it would take for my parents to be able to get that, or how I would want a toy, but back then it was way too expensive for me to have it. Or I would tell them a story of even a close relative, like a cousin or something, that, they wanted something, and if they didn't get it, this is how they would feel. So what I would do is talk to them and use stories to let them understand that they are fortunate now, and that there are other children out there, other people in general, that aren't as fortunate as them to have someone to take care of them right now. One time my daughter we were watching a child's documentary, and one of the children in the show stated that they didn't have any parents. They said the word orphan. And she didn't know what orphan was. And so she asked me, Daddy, what is an orphan? And I explained to her what an orphan, is, why they call certain children orphans. And she just stayed there watching me. And she said, you're telling me that there are children out there that don't have someone to take care of them, like a mommy or daddy? And I said, yes, unfortunately, that's something that happens in the world. And the hug that she gave me, to this day still gives me, goosebumps. And she said, I love you, Dad. I don't want you to be gone. And right there, she was able to appreciate having her father or having her parents. So it's good to use stories to kind of relate to them. Verse stated something earlier saying that you have to come to their level. And we as parents, especially as fathers, when we're busy, I think sometimes we forget that, like I said, they're newcomers to this planet. They don't understand everything that's going on around them, but they might be fascinated and curious. And part of our job is to guide that curiosity and to facilitate the fascination with information that helps them and helps them at the stage that they're at. Because remember, their brains aren't as developed as ours, and they look at things differently. So we have to, use stories and use situations. I like to use even her toys to give a story on appreciation and saying, if I take this away from this cat, from this toy, that toy is going to feel sad, and so on. So you appreciate what you have by giving them a story so that they understand what appreciation is. Because we might understand it, but remember, they're still very young, very little, and very curious.
Thank you. And speaking of material gift, we'll head on the topic of technology. On St. Martin, there's over 80% of penetration on broadband internet connectivity. Considering the prevalence of technology in this epoch of our development, how do you harness technology in the parenting process? And I will start with Toastmaster Elroy Hughes, who have been in the industry for 32 years. Nobody better to really tell us how he harnessed technology in the parenting process.
Yes, the technology is extremely important for every one of us. And it makes no difference for children. And my children, they were not able to even get a cellular phone until they were actually teenagers. And they could have gotten earlier. But I think as a responsible parent, and knowing all the things that is happening on social media, and them not being able to handle some of the things that is actually happening on social media, not getting them too involved at that early stage was not the right thing to do. Me as a parent, that's my way of thinking, and I think that really helped them. Is only as they got older, then they got their own, whether it was their phone, they're able to use, whether it's WhatsApp, Facebook, but monitor, because too often we try to give, again, our children the things that everybody else have, but then we're not monitoring what they're paying attention to, because the simple fact of where technology actually raises our children, a lot of families have actually used technology to raise their children because they don't want their children to be constantly bothering them. So if you simply give your child a phone to play a game on the, then they kind of stay away from you, give you your own quiet time, then you don't bother with them, but then you're not paying attention to what they're doing, and then you have a whole lot of secrets now, because what you're doing, you're developing a whole new breed of children that now starts to hold secret from you because you're not monitoring what you're doing. And I'm not talking about excessive monitor. I'm talking about parental monitoring as a responsible parent. And that goes to whether you're a live-home dad or a father who's not living with you, but when you're there in your absence, you need to be able, to have that 100% time spent with them, and you have a clear idea as to what they're doing, and they feel free to ask you about the kind of information they're discovering on the internet or they're hearing from friends, you name it. The world is so big, and if we are not able to support our children in this large world, this huge world, what happens? They can get lost in it, and it takes a lot more time to bring them back.
Thank you for that. Verse, let's give that a bit of a twist there. And I would like to really know how you harness technology in the raising up of your son. So there might be things that you do together, and information that you share, and teaching that you share by using technology.
Yeah, well, definitely. Well, a couple of years ago, what I did, again, because my son doesn't live with me, even though I see him every day. So what I did, I bought him a tablet with the chip in it so I can call him, and taught him, and he calls me. So that was a way to use technology in a positive and let him know anytime. If I can't make it to you, I will call. I will video call you. So you will see me every day. If something is going on, you want to talk to me, you can call. Whenever I'm away, performing, whatever it is, just one phone call away. So he always knows, hey, my father's one button away, And when we are together, sometimes, I show him things, I show him documentaries and so forth. And again, like what Elroy mentioned, that sometimes some parents do just give the kids the phone, like, give me a little quiet time. But you do have to say, hey, what are you doing? What it is that you're watching. Some of these YouTube things, you go from one thing to the next, and you start out watching cartoon, next thing you're watching grown folks in Spider-Man costume,
Yeah.
And you just gotta be monitor them a little bit, and just check up on their browsing history and so forth. But technology is not all bad, because as well, I mean, my son, he's a sponge, so he comes back to me with, what's this word? A word that he heard, maybe something that I wouldn't have mentioned or anything, and then together I describe him, hey, this is what the word means. And Because remember, even for me growing up, okay, I didn't have internet, no those things at that point in time, but we had TV. I learned a lot from watching TV. You know, tremendous. You learn the slang, the style, the this, the that. And you know, you sponge it up because school can only teach you so much. You know, as a parent, you can only do so much. So there's a positive angle to having and using technology. Of course, when it comes to even gaming, now they have universities that offer you scholarships for kids to play games. This is what they do, you know? So it's not like, oh, it's all bad. Of course, you still have to have a social life. You still have to go outside. And that's one thing I try to find a balance with my son. He loves to hike. He loves to swim. So everything is a balance. And you can't just give them the phone and turn your back on them. You know, that's definitely a negative on them. You know what I mean? So everything is a balance and in right dosages, so to speak.
Thank you for that. I know that is right within your field, my view. And what I would really like you to share with us is the benefits, but also how you're able to get your child disconnected, because we have to appreciate the non-technical as well in raising wholesome children. It's always a wholesome approach to parenting. So tell us some of the benefits and how you're able to get your child disconnected from technology.
Definitely. I'm glad to hear that the other fathers use technology in a way, some shape or form to help guide their kids. And also, monitoring is important. Well, one way that I use to help disconnect, especially my daughter, because she's very susceptible. You know, she's young. She just turned 6. And like Bert said, they're sponges. Anything, you know, that they see that's exciting to them, they'll stick to it because to them it makes them feel good. And one thing I do is that I like to use science and nature to disconnect. I'm a person myself that I'm always connected due to my work and, you know, my lifestyle, what I have to do and how I communicate with people. And I did notice that there is times when you just have to disconnect. I like, especially on the weekends when I know that I'm going to have a lot more time with them. I like to turn off the phone. Let's go outside. I like to show her what a mango leaf is. Tell her, you know, when to know when the mangoes are gonna be in season. She likes to garden. You know, she's very interested in why seeds grow. So you have to. I think one of our panelists mentioned that it's about how the parent raises them, and another one, I think the pastor said about being that example. The way I do it is by showing how to do it. You know, if she sees me on my phone all the time, guess what? She's gonna want to go on the phone all the time. Especially in the morning is when I like to instill that disconnection. My daughter likes to wake up and get on a game. You know, and you know that's the first thing that she would want to do. We control how and what games she plays. We believe in educational games because I believe that technology is for creation as much as recreation. And you know, we use it. You know, try to show her how you can create things on your phone, how you can create video games, how much time it takes for people to create the things that she loves watching and how they do it. So to disconnect, the best thing to do, and in my experience, is take them outside. Use science. I plant seeds in a carton egg, in an egg carton. You go and you make use watercolors to make things different, to make rainbow water and explain why it is that oil floats on top of water and why it doesn't mix. So use experiences, real life experiences, to make them interested in the physical world as much, because the digital world, they're going to get interested on their own. That's something that's going to happen. So to disconnect, you have to be active. I think one of our panelists mentioned that you can't be there. I think it was Mr. Elroy. You can't be there physically and not there mentally. You have to show them that you're not just taking them outside either, that you're paying attention to the questions that they're asking you, that you're not just taking them outside and letting them run free and, you know, to get some personal time. No, walk with them, explain things to them, ask them to ask you questions. And my daughter likes to ask me why I have to turn off the phone, or why does my device automatically disconnect at a certain time? And I let her know because it's time for family time. It's time for you, mommy and daddy, to speak. It's time for you to go call your auntie. It's time for you to go speak to your brother. It's time, it's time for you to connect with other people. If you explain the importance of connection, real life connection, your children will understand that the digital world is just another addition to facilitate that learning and that connection. They won't be addicted and dependent on it. What they will do is use it in order to better communicate with you and share with you. My daughter loves to draw, and sometimes she draws on paper, and sometimes I let her draw on the tablet, and I'll save it and put it up in the cloud so that when she grows up, she can go back and log in and see how her drawings were when she was 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's what you have to do. Be creative, be understanding, and know that the teachings we learned when we were younger, they can still be applied today. You just have to modify them so that it fits your child and find something that is actually interesting to them and know what they're interested in.
Thank you for that. So technology could be both an ally and a foe. There's always a pros and cons to everything else. So Pastor, are you acquainted with the term bowling a googly? You're from St. Vincent, so you should know some cricket terms, right? Are you acquainted with the term bowling a googly?
Yes, I'm acquainted with the bowling, and I was wondering about the googly.
So now I'm gonna bowl you a googly. I know that you are a modern father, but shine some light on the negativity of being so dependent on technology from a father's perspective.
One thing that technology, if it's not monitored, and I agree with all my brothers here on the panel, if it's not monitored, you lose the importance of what it means to be human. You lose the ability to connect. I'm a marriage counselor. I deal with marriages and so forth. And sometimes you have to deal with persons who travel or who go to sail, sometimes 3 months, 4 months, and so forth. And you would always hear persons say, it's just not the same. You understand? It's difficult to just always watching on the video, but you cannot physically connect with that person. We were not made for that. That physical connection is still important. And that's one of the things that if we're not too careful about, we lose that, the importance of physically connecting with persons. I remember years ago, I was talking to a young man, and while we were talking, he said, "Lol." And I was like, what? I had to go like, what? And the guy just said, "Lol." And after that, his face was straight. And I'm thinking to myself, you have lost something. You've lost that emotional part of you, the ability to laugh and enjoy the laugh. We can't lose that. And that's something that, sometimes if we're not careful, technology can rob us from what it means to be human. Because we custom typing, sometimes when some people type "lol," they ain't laughing, They just put "lol" to say what they say funny, but they ain't laughing. Or they send a whole heap of smiley thing, and they ain't smiling, They're just telling you what you're saying is humorous, but they're losing what it means to be human, that emotional
emotion,
aspect.
yeah.
They're losing it, and we have to be very, very mindful of that. And that's why sometimes we have to shut down everything and just reconnect with the physical person or persons that are there so that we can enjoy that kind of thing. Another thing that if we have to be mindful of is that sometimes, persons are comfortable being vulnerable behind a device, but they're not vulnerable. They're comfortable being vulnerable face to face. So they don't know how to bring issues to the table. So sometimes even conflict resolution, we have to learn to watch people in their eyes and talk with them, not to argue with them, but talk with them. Not jump behind a device and say, yeah, but you do this and this. No. You come because it leaves room for the mind to wander in many areas. So, those are some of the areas that we have to be very mindful of and watch and so forth, how we go about doing the thing, because we have to maintain what it means to be human and to connect with person and to deal with issues straight on.
Thank you for that. I'm gonna head to verse with this question. Social media is very prevalent, and there are a lot of kids that dependent on a like. or some sort of a reaction from post, and it's addictive. As a matter of fact, it is even said that it is like any other addiction. What is your take on how could we raise children to mitigate against that?
Well, to me, the first step is, you have to put an age as to when your child should be allowed to go and join a social media platform. Secondly, before they join, we let them understand that, hey, this is a platform where this can happen and this can happen. Your how you feel daily should not be dictated by whether or not you get 10 likes or 100 likes. Those are false, because sometimes even I'm guilty. I pass across a picture and I like it just for liking its sake. I ain't even watched the picture good. You understand? I ain't even studied the quote properly, but I like it. It's my friend, I like it. You understand? But too much people are dependent on that to make them feel good. And it's fake, because once you turn off that device or you remove yourself from the phone, guess what? You're back in the same position, feeling what? Worthless because of a fake like. I want to be liked in real life. I want real friends in real life. That's why I find it so critical to always connect with your friends, always have conversations. I despise sometimes, to be honest, when, if I'm trying to have a conversation and a person is deep down in the phone, because then you're not into this conversation. You understand? If I meet up with my friends or, with my partner and so forth, the phone should be aside and let us have a conversation. Like Pastor Nathan said, let us not lose that human side of us, because it is critical.
Thank you for that. Mr. Hughes, is there any particular protocol in place at home as it pertains? We heard about the phone. Is there any protocol in place that will help shape and discipline your children as it pertains to technology and family time and the conflict between the two?
At an earlier stage in their life, before becoming, now you can practically say they're adult. My eldest is 25 and the youngest is making 20. And before that, no phones around the table, or not even texting and nothing around the table. The basic things that, we take for granted, we try as much as possible not to allow our children to let technology take advantage or take away who they are as a child, or the time you have with them.
Thank you.
We didn't leave technology take away that.
Thank you for that. Marvio, is there any measures you have in place? Let us know that quickly and give your closing statement on that particular topic. Is there any measures you have in place?
Yes, there are many measures I have in place. The first one is to control what it is they consume. A good friend of mine, a gamer friend of mine, told me we have to protect our gates, and our gates are our eyes and our ears. And I do that a lot with myself, and I practice it with my children. Again, when it comes to what they watch, control it. I particularly don't let my daughter go on YouTube by herself at all. She doesn't go to YouTube unless I select or her mother selects the video that she's going to watch, and it's on a playlist that she can't move from there. Her devices are set, some of her devices are set in the house to disconnect from the internet at a certain time automatically, so that I don't have to even go and take it off. She knows once it's disconnected, it's time to come outside.
Thank you for that. You have a closing. You have 10 seconds to say a closing statement.
Closing. Fathers, make sure that you take care of your mental health as well as you are taking care of your children's. When there's a reason why they tell you in the airplane to put the oxygen mask on you first before you even take care of your kids. So make sure that you do that, and that every day you are emulating what you want your children to not only see, but be.
Thank you. Verse, a closing statement.
Yes, well, finally, I would like to say Happy Father's Day once again to everyone. Fathers, men in our community, be present, step up to the plate, and be responsible.
All right. Pastor Nathan, your closing statement.
Father, there's no perfect father, and it's never too late to be vulnerable or to make correction. So become the example you want to be.
Thank you. Elroy, your closing statement.
And again, every moment is so important for each and every one of us as a father, it's never too late to take up the role and be the father that you want to be. And don't feel embarrassed if you didn't do a good job at the beginning. But start, try.
Thank you. Thank you. I thank each and every one of you to come out and be part of this discussion. It was fruitful. I thank you. I thank you. And I hope that we could probably continue because there's so many topics on the subject of fatherhood I would like to bring across. Thank you. Fatherhood in the 21st century panel discussion.